So with that, everyone in the room, thank you, that may or may not be aware, but the table to my left rear, that left rear has documentation of what we're going to be addressing in this meeting. If you want some paperwork to thumb through and follow along, that's where you need to go to get the paperwork. And before I forget, all those that spoke here this afternoon, consideration of appointments, thank you for being here. And we are now going to pay attention to the agenda for the 5 o'clock meeting. First item on the agenda is the invocation. So if you would, please, let's take a moment of silence and reflection just for a moment. All right, thank you very much. We're on number 2 and calling the meeting to order and say, hey, welcome to all of you for this 5 o'clock regular meeting of the town of Holden Beach. Number 3 on the agenda is a pledge of allegiance to the flag to my right. If you will stand, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you address the conflict of interest, please?
Yes, but you didn't do the agenda yet.
Hey, we haven't done the agenda yet. Keep me straight, Madam Clerk. Looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as written, please.
Looking for a second.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous, Madam Clerk. We are now on the conflict of interest.
Okay, Part 6, Rule 13E of the 2024 Rules of Procedure requires members to disclose any potential conflicts of interest. Please state if you have any potential conflicts. Mayor Holden.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Myers.
No conflicts.
Commissioner Smith.
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Thomas.
No conflict.
Commissioner Dyer.
No conflict.
And Commissioner Parfit.
No conflicts.
Thank you.
Hearing none, we'll move to number 6, consideration of approval of minutes. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
One at a time or all 3?
well, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve all 3, our special meetings on June the 7th and June the 12th, as well as our last regular meeting on June the 18th.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All the minutes are approved. Number 7, public comments on agenda items only. If you'll raise your hand, I've got a list here. Chad, you spoke a moment ago. Give us your name and address. You have to do that again so they can record it.
I just have a clarifying request, because I'm on there twice, one as an individual owner and one as the president of Holden Beach West. Can I have the 2 to 4 minutes? Because I'm representing myself separately from the board.
What's the opinion of the?
2,000 for 6 minutes.
Yeah.
3 for each.
Yeah,
Okay,
three.
I won't take much, I just
That's
want to make
fine.
sure I don't, okay, thank you.
All right.
Then I'll try to pause them. So,
All
first
right,
of all,
3 minutes on the stormwater plan.
thank you very much. So, Chad Hawk, 1222 Ocean Boulevard West, talking to myself as the homeowner. Been here 12-plus years, been visiting this island for 21 years. Our stormwater has always been a challenge here, as most islands have. Not an easy thing to deal with, but it's something that I think has come to a critical mass for our island. Not just for the homeowners, but really, quite frankly, for our visitors as well, as was just recently affected several weeks ago. The town has put together a strong plan. There's the ability to go after funds now that, quite frankly, the town is ahead of the game, across ahead of other towns. If we don't take action, I think what we're doing is putting ourselves in a hole. I'm asking you seriously take this into consideration and approve this stormwater plan to allow things to move forward, and no matter what the priority is, but to make sure that we have access, not just to the island, but emergency access, and have a healthy sewer and water system. That's how I represent myself as a homeowner. but as a POA. So Chad Hawk, Holden Beach West POA president. I represent 159 different lots as a part of Holden Beach. And as that representation and asking our different members what we wanted to speak about today, which is we see it as, almost as I referenced earlier, which is this is about emergency access, this is about sanitation, this is about access to this beautiful beach that we have. And the more that we don't take action on the stormwater initiatives that are put in front of you, the worse it's going to get. We just had a beautiful road that we're just taking care of, and we're still having major problems. Every time the town has to deal with, even the event that we just had recently, they have to go into such immediate action that in some cases, the worry is, will we be able to have running sewer even though we may have access? And as homeowners, first and foremost, and taxpayers, we ask that you, the commissioners, look at this and improve this plan that you have, and then look at changes as we go. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bauer?
Jim Bauer, 329 Ocean Boulevard West. This is a picture taken on August 9th of a pump set up to remove standing water from Hurricane Debbie in front of 1321 and 1322 Ocean Boulevard West. Hurricane Debbie moved away from us that day. There was very little additional rain. The puddle is located approximately 9/10 of a mile to the entrance of the West End gated community. Just to give you an idea, I'm going to call it remote. I might be wrong saying that. If you take offense, I'll apologize afterwards. The number of houses to the west, or further away from the bridge, to the end of the island, where this puddle could stop the transit of vehicles, both civilian and emergency, number about 28 in total. The number of houses on the east side of the puddle, closer to the bridge, that had to traverse similar multiple water hazards from the bridge are over 1,300 houses, and that's just on Ocean Boulevard West. There are hundreds of additional houses on the side streets also affected. The pump is town-owned, and the pump is town-operated. You can see from this picture, and I have a photo, I'll pass it around if anybody is interested. You can see from the picture that the intake hose to the pump is disconnected, and that the intake hose is disconnected, and that the discharge hose has a noticeable kink, suggesting the pump is either idle or off. Once again, I'll remind you that this is Friday and the rain has stopped. The puddle in that pump sits is probably no longer a hazard, and the fact that there wasn't enough depth of water to support the pumping was why the pump was probably shut down. As a New York City fireman and a fireman down here, I know an awful lot about taking water out of puddles. Trust me. Why wasn't this pump, once a particular hazard was mitigated, moved immediately to the more heavily trafficked and more commonly used affected areas? Why? The lake, and I call it a lake, it's Lake Holden, the lake in front of our house in the 300 block of OBW received no such attention and remained there for an additional 4 days. The only reason that the lake subsided was due to the cars driving by it, spreading out the water, and then the water evaporating from the roadway. I know that I'm not alone in the aggravation of the plodding through lakes in my car. Now, back to what we're talking about, stormwater management. We are, once again, talking about spending millions of dollars on stormwater management, which we don't have, right, which we're going to have to borrow, and on stormwater mitigation. Maybe we don't have to. Maybe we can just move this pump. You'll notice it's on wheels. We also found out that you can pump stormwater in the ICW this storm. I didn't know that. I was told by a lot of people that it was illegal to dump collected water into the ICW or onto the beach. But now obviously you can. So let's do that the next time, huh? We can go ahead with the stormwater management thing and we can get that done if you would like. But if there's an emergency like that, and if we have the pumps, let's use them to the best of our abilities. If you have to, authorize people to use their own pumps. If you have to, have volunteers at the local flooded areas and give them the opportunity to go to the Office of Emergency Management site, pick up a pump, and pump the water somewhere. It's simple, it's easy, it's fast, and it really does, if you want to talk about like government things that the government looks like they can't fight their way out of a paper bag. This is one of them. We had a 450-foot-long puddle 3 days after this storm. It's got to be mitigated. Thank you. And if anybody wants to see the pictures, I'll pass them around.
Sylvia Pate?
Sylvia Pate, 111 Charlotte Street. I wanted to speak to the item number 14 on the agenda, the stormwater plan as well. I would like to strongly encourage you to adopt a resolution to go forward with that. But I'd really like for you to go a step beyond that, because when the presentation was done, I think it was at the May meeting, was it May meeting? I think it was. I was very disappointed that the plan itself was not much more comprehensive. I guess I was expecting, maybe it was false expectation on my part, but I was expecting a much more comprehensive plan. I'm not trying to diss the staff or anything, but I understand that they identified the areas that were looked at. And, you know, so we're only looking at 5 or 6 areas. None of the canal streets were looked at. I live on Charlotte Street. My regret for moving off the boulevard. But anyway, my street floods with the, you know, rainstorm. And with this past flooding we got, and obviously we got a lot of water. I mean, my neighbor's house, it starts right at the end of my mailbox. And for like 8 houses down, it was completely flooded. And then all the water was running underneath their house, all into the canal. So I guess it's okay for it to run in the canal too. But anyway, and then what it wasn't running in the canal was running in my yard. But I know that a number of I know Lumberton Street was flooded, I know Charlotte Street flooded, and then when you get down to the fish streets, I know Tarpon and Marlin and Tina are typical ones that flooded as well. And we had other areas that flooded that haven't been typically being flooded. And it just seems to me like the paving has exacerbated our problem. And I know that DOT had indicated that they were going to help solve some of that problem. I don't know if they've done what they said they were going to do, or if they're waiting to complete what they were going to do, or where we're at with all that. But it doesn't seem like the storm drains that they put in are doing anything. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they are, but it doesn't look like it. But I know in front of the pier, that's never flooded like that. I mean, half the parking lot's flooded with just a regular rainstorm. And that's what we had, 2 weeks ago. And of course, the east end, I mean, you couldn't even get down past the curve down there. That was atrocious. But anyway, I would just like to recommend you go forward with what we got, because I know we're going to have to, it's going to take a while to, I guess, look at some of these other streets. And then the 200 block was one of the worst ones that's always flooded, and it wasn't even included in this plan. So I was a little confused about that and why that wasn't one of the areas that was identified. So I would like to encourage you to go forward with what we got, because I know it's going to take time for us to probably get some engineering and work done on the other sites that we need to look at. But I think it needs to be a much more comprehensive plan. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Did I miss anyone that thinks that they signed up? Okay. Mr. Hewitt, we're on number 8 on the agenda.
We didn't sign up, we didn't know we needed to sign up. Can we still speak?
Sure.
Sure.
Yes, ma'am. You're getting a special benefit.
Thank you very much.
No spanking tonight.
Now we know that we need to sign up. Karen Toombs, 265 OBE. We are the poor unfortunate souls next to the newer Holden Lake at 261 and 263. I want to thank those of you who made the time to come by and take a look at our situation firsthand. We really appreciate it. We know you guys are busy, and women are busy, so just appreciate your taking the time to look at what we're dealing with. I also want to thank Mr. Evans for taking the time he took today to explain to us and give us a better perception of what the water table and storm water situation is really all about. It was very, very helpful to us in calming us down. With that said, we echo everything that has been said previously about the stormwater situation, and urging you to adopt the plan and get it going as quickly as humanly possible. We also, we had a rain the other night. It was less than an inch, because we didn't put a rain gauge out. And the way the water accumulates at 261 and 263, it came back up 5 inches, and we had flooding that had been taken care of. We spent the weekend moving sand and gravel and all sorts of fun things. But it was under control, and then it came right back up with just that little bit of rain. So I'm here to ask somehow to get that pump working on that lot to get the water out before Friday and Saturday rain comes. And at the same time, we now understand we need to take proactive measures on our own to see what we can do to mitigate nature in the future, whatever that might be, we don't know. We're new to this game, we've only been on the island, it'll be 5 years, so we're new, and appreciate your patience. But we really like, it's a bad, I mean, you know, it's a terrible situation. We're not the only ones affected, but this is a huge, huge body of water that if we get more rain, it's not going to go anywhere. So again, we implore you to get that pumping over on McCrae, I guess into the wetlands over there, where it'll just percolate and become one with nature, as opposed to one with our house. Anything else?
No, I support everything that Jim Toombs, 265 OBE. I live with this young lady here. I support everything that she said, and I thank those who came by and took a first-hand look at our situation. I'm guessing that it's Lake Wobegon, by the way. It's not. It is probably 2 to 3 football fields worth of ground coverage. Everything, 6 houses down the road, 4 houses down, to the west, and over to the brand-new, wonderful county road that we have behind us. And so we would urge that this plan be adopted and implemented as quickly as possible. And thanks Tim, for the tutorial today. And again, anybody who bothered to come by and check out the situation firsthand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? All right. Mr. Hewitt, number 8.
Yes, sir. This is the annual update from Warden Smith. We're joined tonight by Congressman Mike McIntyre from Warden Smith to do so, to update the Board of Commissioners. Joining him is Roger Gwynn from the Ferguson Group, in addition to Stephanie Missert and Kai Gooms, who are going to dial in, if we can give them a minute. And I'd just like to express to Congressman McIntyre, who's been a longtime friend of Southeast North Carolina, and who's recently also been recognized by his peers in the 31st edition of the Best Lawyers in America for his exceptional work in government relations practice. So, thanks, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dave.
For those of you that are listening over the airwaves, we are taking a technical break here as we get some equipment functioning, so we can continue the meeting. So bear with us just a minute.
You ready?
Yes, sir, Congress.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you again, David and Christie.
can't tell you enough how much we enjoy working with David Hewitt and Christy Ferguson. As they know, we were in Washington together back in March, the week before Easter, and had a very active week in working with the folks from our congressional delegation and their staff, trying to make sure they understood all the details of the things that we're doing to help Holden Beach. And that was a very beneficial time. It's hard to believe now that's been, well, soon be 6 months ago when we hit September, so it's been almost half a year ago. But that's indicative of the great work your staff does to come up and spend that time. I know that this town was blessed with the national award that week, and how proud we were of Holden Beach, and I understand this fall from the town manager said you're going to be receiving an international award for the work that's been done on the beach here. So congratulations to the town for your leadership and the excellent work this commission does, as well as your staff. I am joined today by Roger Quinn, who is the CEO of the Ferguson Group, which is the research and advocacy group that we work with in Washington, who tracks these bills that we are going to be mentioning in just a moment all the way through, from the time they're filed through subcommittee, through full committee, to get to the floor of the House, to the Senate, when they go to conference, when they come back. So they're our eyes and ears on the ground every day in Washington. So in addition to our being down here, working with you all, and being here in Holden Beach, as David and Christy and I often will stop by when I'm here in southeastern North Carolina to meet with them and with the mayor when he's available to talk about the issues and where they stand. We also have a team on the Hill continually in Washington working with us on the legislative research and monitoring of these bills, and we appreciate that work. Roger's a native of Charlotte, went to school at NC State, and is vacationing often right here in Brunswick County, so he knows North Carolina well, but his business is a national business from California to here, and they work with communities and counties all over the nation. So we're blessed with the best of both worlds in terms of his experience and his work. And I'm pleased that he could join us today, and that Stephanie Missert and others from the Ferguson Group, who we work with regularly and whom David and Christy have gotten to know personally, are on the line with us now from Washington and other locations where they are around the country. Today I was going to share with you some highlights from the report that we send. As you all should obviously know, we send monthly reports to keep you abreast of things going on. Today I'll highlight some of those. I won't read the report, obviously, in the interest of time and knowing that you've already had a chance to look at the report. But I think it's a good time for us to just take a few minutes to see where we are, because here we are in the middle of August and are moving toward the end of August. Congress is not in session this month. They're taking a recess. So it's kind of a good moment to pause and catch our breath to say, all right, what next? Because we're running out of time. Because when they go back after Labor Day, they're going to be there the month of September, and then they're getting back out of town to come back home and campaign during October. And then obviously we have the November elections, and then they'll go back right after Veterans Day to finish up whatever may be left to do. And there'll be some things surely left to do because there's a lot still on the table. But they'll clean that up between the end of November and the end of December as they approach Christmas. I'm pleased to report that the town of Holden Beach continues to achieve remarkable success as we have had the privilege to work with you on this the last 4 going on 5 years in the federal appropriations process. An impressive track record, a track record that has not actually been equaled by many towns across North Carolina because the number of earmarks that have been achieved. A congressman can only have a limited number of requested earmarks for projects, and it's not enough even for every town in Brunswick County alone. Every town could ask for something and would not get it, because generally there have been about 15 requests a congressman can make, and that means obviously that not every town, not every county, not towns in other counties are going to get what they've asked for. But we're grateful that we have achieved regular success with Holden Beach in getting earmark requests approved. As you may have noticed in our last 2 monthly reports, at our request, Congressman Rouser sponsored and submitted the town of Holden Beach's FY 2025 appropriations request for Lockwoods Folly Inlet navigation maintenance, and also for the general reevaluation report, the GRR, as it's generally known in the Corps of Engineers, to continue the Brunswick County Beaches Holden Beach section under the Army Corps of Engineers investigative budget. And this is a continuing process that we started almost 3 years ago on a plan that the Corps proposed, 3 by 3 by 3. You have a review done within 3 years. It's a $3 million cost. That cost is split between the non-federal project sponsor, which is Holden Beach, and then the federal government. And then you move towards seeing if a 50-year type beach restoration project can be carried on. This has taken 4 years because they've run into some unexpected delays and difficulties, but that's not unusual either. The most time they usually take can be up to 6. But we're at the 4-year mark, and the Corps is moving toward trying to complete this study now within the 4 years. So that's good news. But we greatly appreciate the fact that Congressman Rausler sponsored the Lockwood Folly maintenance request, and that Senator Tillis sponsored and submitted our request the appropriations to continue for the general reevaluation report, to continue this Army Corps of Engineers investigative budget, to move toward looking at the beach restoration project that would continue potentially as a 50-year project. The next step after getting Congressman Rausler and Senator Tillis's approval, which is a big step because if they don't submit it, that's the end of it. There's no request going forward. But in addition to their submitting it, the next step was to get support from the House Appropriations Committee and the Senate Appropriations Committee for both requests. And we're pleased to report that the committees have advanced both of these requests. So that's another major victory, to be fighting with appropriations requests from all over the nation and have the town of Holden Beach be able to get those requests approved to the Senate and to the House Appropriations Committee. Now, the subcommittees then are assigned to look at it in more detail. So House Appropriations and Senate Appropriations Committee then send it down to subcommittees to then pick through the details. Well, a lot of times the subcommittees will reduce the amount requested because they're trying to also keep their budget in order. They're trying to meet requests from all over the nation. And a lot of times they'll say, look, we'll still give you some money, but it's just not going to be as much. But, you ask for what you shoot for the moon, and you hope you hit the top of the tree. And a lot of times we have to have that battle in Washington, too. So we're pleased that both projects survived that process. The subcommittee did reduce the Lockwood's Folly amount from $1.5 million to $655,000, which again is not unusual for them to reduce a request. They do that a lot of times for different projects across the board. However, we were very pleased that GRR funding was approved for the $250,000, which was needed, and that had been requested. So both requests have survived, and both are successfully included in the FY 2025 appropriation bills that now are going to the next step to go to the Senate floor and to the House floor respectively to be approved in the appropriations bills. The Senate Appropriations Committee has approved 11 of the 12 annual spending bills, but the full Senate hasn't passed any of those bills yet. The House has made more progress, believe it or not, with the House Appropriations Committee approving all 12 bills coming out of their committee, and the full House has already approved 5 of the 12 bills. Now, reality is they're probably not going to get these things passed in September because they're going to come back and there are going to be fights over appropriations now as they get ready to come to the floor. And then they would have to, once they do pass a bill on either floor, they're eventually going to have to go to conference to iron out the differences between the two varying bills. So what will probably happen is that they'll advance as far as they can through subcommittees or full committees, or to get it to the floor of the House and hear it, or the floor of the Senate and hear it. And then it'll be September 30th, and that's the end of the federal fiscal year. So what happens is either the federal government shuts down, Congress doesn't pass an appropriations bill, or they'll do what's more likely, they'll pass what's called a continuing resolution, which is a resolution to continue the federal government operating under the current FY 2024 budget until it gets the FY 2025 budget passed. So that's probably what you'll see happen at the end of September, because they're going to all want to go home and campaign. And then they'll come back, and then in that lame duck session, as it's called, between mid-November after Veterans Day and Christmas, they'll get down to business quickly. Because if they don't pass the appropriations bill, then there will be a shutdown, and there will be a new Congress, and they won't know what's going to happen because everything they've worked on earmarks and other appropriations will have been for naught. And believe you me, none of these folks in office want to see their work go down the drain. So there's a strong, strong likelihood that Congress, before Christmas, before the end of the calendar year, will get the fiscal year budget finally passed for 2025. And then that way, when the new Congress is seated in January, they'll then be operating under the new 2025 federal budget. So we are optimistic that the appropriations that have been approved thus far on both requests will come to fruition at that time. Moving on to some other quick items, the federally managed dredge material disposal sites, which is a long title, but the bottom line is this town is very, very familiar with the unfortunate situation where the federal government came and took an easement across property that the town already owned, and then said you can't dump any dredge material there. So what happens? The marinas and the town itself, with the canals and all, is having to take its material, either truck it away somewhere at very high expense or figure out another way to try to get rid of the material here. This is a battle we've been fighting since 2017, and are we thrilled? Yes. That the WRDA bill, and WRDA, W-R-D-A, is an acronym for the Water Appropriations Bill. I think they tried to make the acronym sound like the word water. But the WRDA bill includes a provision that we had spent time these last 3 years talking with Congressman Rouser about. He took it seriously. He worked with us and had his staff. And in January, first thing out the gate, when we started this new calendar year, was to go right back and make sure that he was able to get that request in on time, and he did. And sure enough, that provision is included in the new WRDA bill. And that is to say that a local non-federal entity, i.e. a town like Holden Beach, could use a disposal site if certain conditions are met, which means that there's going to be enough opportunity for the federal government to dispose whatever they need to and still have room left for the local town. Well, in this case, they do. There's plenty of room for Holden Beach to be able to dispose what it needs to in the federal government, because the federal government hasn't been using the site that's been one of the main concern here in Holden Beach. And what other sites have been used have been minimal compared to what they're giving up and what the town has had to give up. We know there was a 6-acre plot of land that the town not long ago had to give up to put disposal material somewhere. And so now with this new provision, if it will not reduce the capacity below the 20-year need of the federal government, then a non-federal entity may be allowed to place dredge material in a core placement facility on a case-by-case basis. If anybody has that case-by-case basis that you would prevail on, it's Holden Beach. So what drove this provision that is in the new WRDA bill is the town of Holden Beach, because you had the most unique situation that nobody could justify for the federal government not letting you use your own property where you could dispose your own material. And as far as this 20-year requirement, easily that can be met, because it's been longer than that they haven't been using it. And it's an opportunity for the town to be able to make good common sense use of where dredge material should be disposed. We are very pleased that that is included in the WRDA bill. Also, the House version of the WRDA bill includes a significant increase for the Army Corps of Engineers in what's called Section 5113, which is EI money, as it's known by the Corps. That stands for Environmental Infrastructure Authority, which provides grants to public entities in North Carolina for water resources projects, included but not limited to water, wastewater, and stormwater. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? For infrastructure projects. There is $13 million that has been there since, I think it's around 2007, that hadn't been used by anybody, because people, number one, didn't realize it was sitting there. Nobody requested the Corps, can we use this environmental infrastructure money for a need that we have? And so the Corps didn't do it unless they were requested. So that money's just been sitting there, and $13 million doesn't go a very long way if you start thinking about all the needs that there could be for environmental infrastructure for North Carolina communities. But we realized that if that's going to work, number one, we need to bring attention to it, and we did. In 2023 fiscal year, we asked for some funding from that fund, and $100,000 was granted through an earmark request on behalf of Holden Beach. That was just enough money to put together a plan of what could be done, i.e. a stormwater plan to help this town, and that the Corps would understand what the need is, and that the Corps would be in a position to sign a partnership project agreement, or a PPA. And so the Corps is in that position now, and now this was the year for us to strike, and we requested, and again, Congressman Rouser picked it up and ran with it, and we appreciate that opportunity to work with his office. We had specifically thought about Holden Beach and specifically worked on this to ask for, instead of $13 million, let's see if we can get $50 million. and we did. We did get that amount authorized now in the House Florida bill. And so we are thrilled that that amount is in the bill, again, because of the needs here in Holden Beach. Now, it can't designate Holden Beach by name, obviously. Other towns can compete for that money. It's a competitive type of grant process. But what does it mean? It means you all are at the tip of the spear. You all in Brunswick County both are in a situation where there has been initial work done that nobody else in this state has done. And so there's a possibility that you will be able to move ahead with the proposed PPA that the Corps has been considering on behalf of the town of Holden Beach. And so we're honored to work with the town in taking a leadership role on this, and hopefully that means by fiscal year 2026, which would be, after next year, we can go back and get the money for environmental infrastructure, that the Corps would work with us to help get the money for the needs that you have. I know you're considering a master stormwater project today. And that's the opportunity, and I believe the town manager has mentioned that in his report as well. But let me also say this. There is a window of hope that you don't have to wait till 2026, because if this is passed this year, which the Water Resources Development Act needs to be, and Congress knows that, and there's strong bipartisan support, it's not something you hear often these days. But on August 1st, the Senate passed it unanimously. When do you hear that? And on the end of July, the House passed it overwhelmingly bipartisan. So there's an opportunity that if that instruction is given by Congress for WRDA, for the current WRDA bill, that in the Army Corps' work project plan for next year, 2025, that they would have the money available, and a request could be made then of the Corps to apply that money to a project here. And so that's an opportunity that may be awaiting you if you're in a position to accept it, but we can't accept it if we don't try for it. And we're willing to try for it, as we plan ahead for next year on the projects that are there. And if, in fact, the WRDA bill goes as expected and that provision stays in. There are plenty of other projects in the Senate bill that could have implications for Holden Beach. I commend the reading of our report to you. And they are dealing with a whole host of different issues, but all very, very positive that would help Holden Beach. And I'm happy to discuss any of those if anybody has a question about it. But I think in the interest of time today, I want to honor your time and thank you for the time to be able to be with you. I'd like to mention one last thing on one other source of money for our area that has already been approved, and that is the opportunity for the Atlantic Conservation Coalition, which in our situation includes the states of Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. That has already been authorized to receive $421,238,074 for climate pollution reduction. That includes dealing with issues like air pollution, and in our case, has already been designated to be used for the protection and restoration of coastal and forest lands and peatland. So this helps environmentally in protecting from the ravaging effects that have been occurring from other kinds of pollution. And it's already been approved in the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, and then through the respective offices that are similar in the other 3 states that I mentioned. But that's an opportunity for that money for the Atlantic Conservation Commission to help our area as well. With that, I don't know, Roger, if you have any comment about any of the specific things that I mentioned or a broader sense?
Maybe just, thank you very much. Just maybe one quick addition that relates to the environmental infrastructure assistance that Congressman McIntyre referenced. Again, I just commend you all and your staff for the great work that you've done in terms of investing in the study, the stormwater master plan, or the study that's been put together that you're considering later today and has been prepared for you. That investment in that study work is combined with, as Congressman McIntyre said, your success in securing only 2 earmarks of that special environmental infrastructure funding that's available statewide. You're one of only 2 that got any money on that. Combined with that money is going to put you in a place where you really can compete very effectively for resources in, as early as Congressman McIntyre said, as early as the current, the upcoming new fiscal year, FY '25. There is, as you referenced, there's $60 million that's added that's not been allocated in environmental construction money. It hasn't been allocated to anybody nationwide. And you, by virtue of the steps that you've taken to date, and the work that's been done today, you're going to be in a great position. If that money can be kept in the final bill, you'll be in a great position to compete for money soon. They'll do all the things that you want to do, help start that process, that partnership with the Corps. The only bit of caution, which is we talked about in the past, I think, but is, nothing with the Corps is fast. But, once you get going, what we can tell you is very, very honestly, is that once you start this partnership, if you click on it with this first 100,000, once you start, you can start identifying real increments of work that need to be done. Corps is a great partner with that. We see it nationwide, and it's done it with many other communities, and so it's but again, it only is possible because of the investment that you've made, the forward-thinking work that you've done already to put yourself in a position to compete effectively for that. So, congratulations for that.
Just a clarification, you mentioned 60 million, I know I said 50. For North Carolina, the authority is moving up from 13 to 50.
Right.
But nationwide, the Senate's looking at 60 million figures, so that's where that's coming
For
from.
the overall pot of money.
And, of course, the House has a lesser amount, so there's going to be a battle between the House and the Senate about where that ends up. But we're pleased to be in the best position that we can be right now here. And the two places he referred to, of course, Holden Beach and Brunswick County are both in that position. So you'll benefit either way because you're residents of both. But hopefully that positioning that you've done that has paid off now, that $100,000 that we were able to get in 2023, put you in a position now to hopefully be able to cash in 2025 or perhaps 2026. We're certainly going to go for it. Thank you very much.
Congressman, staff, all of you have done some miracle work, and no one will ever know the total hours and hard work that you put in, but we greatly appreciate it. Look forward to working with you in the future. And for those of us who have been involved for a long time, we know what it's like whenever you were not involved. And so things have really improved in our relationship on the federal level, state level, and local level in regards to these kinds of projects. And we really, truly, I can't express our appreciation enough, for the millions of dollars that you have helped bring to this town. And the evidence of that good hard work can be readily seen as one travels up and down the waterfront of Holden Beach. And being recognized nationally and all the way from coast to coast and state and everything else, all these accolades that Holden Beach is getting, if it were not for our staff and your staff working so hard, we probably wouldn't be where we are. So thank you so much. People from across the country coming to look at what we have done, all of us together, it's really heartwarming. Thank you so much. And the commissioners, if you've got any questions of Congressman McIntyre and staff.
So I have a quick question. So you talked about the stormwater. If it does go through in '25, what would be the time frame that we would need to start the grant process? Just kind of wondering if we have opportunity to make some tweaks to the master plan before we have to submit the grant.
I can answer that. It's been as soon as yesterday where we were in contact with Senator Budd's office, who is asking us for more information so that they can accommodate our request.
Yeah, I was going to mention Senator Budd's office. I know I mentioned Congressman Rouser and Senator Sillis, that they do work with us on earmarks. Senator Budd's office has always been very good to work with, but he philosophically does not promote earmarks. So for his office, thankfully, because of the good relationship, as you well know, David, that we've had meeting with him, meeting with his office over the years, they did reach out. And they did say, we want to help because after the storm Debbie came through, they knew there would be an opportunity. And this kind of money that Roger and I were describing in Section 5113 money, see, that is additional money that the Corps has available for the asking. Now, you've got to prove you're worthy of it. You can't just say, give it to me, and they give it to you. You have to show the merit of the need. But that's the kind of thing that Senator Budd is reaching out to help us on. That's not considered an earmark where he just goes and tries to push through a particular project, but rather that's money through EI, the environmental infrastructure, that could be available. That yes, that he could assist us on, because that money's there, and it's just a question of now who's going to be able to qualify for it. And they're willing to jump in and help us qualify. So thank you, David.
Maybe just one other specific thing on the, Commissioner, and we'll be working with staff in September, just in the next few weeks, to start the process of having those further discussions. They've been in discussions with the Corps already, but additional discussions about the specifics, because the Corps is going to want to know exactly what, you're asking that the money be committed to, and they'll be looking for probably some ideas of phasing and different sizes of increments of work tool in case they only have access to, they have access to less money than we would hope. But in any case, that whole process will start very soon. So,
One question. Congressman, thank you for coming, everybody that came. Question with regard to placing the spoils material. We will still, if we are allowed to use the Corps' spoil sites, we're still going to have what I call a tipping fee to pay, correct? They will charge us something per cubic yard?
I know you all had done that previously. David, I'm not sure what the extent of your agreement was with them about that.
It's done on a case-by-case basis, and historically, when we've used the Corps spoil sites, there is a tipping fee, but there's another aspect to this law that's unique to Holden Beach, in that that legislation as written is specific to Corps-designated spoil sites. We have a town spoil site that isn't a Corps spoil site, that it's in the Corps' easement. So what we want to do is we want to get access to the Corps spoil sites, and we want the constraint for using our town-owned spoil site to be lifted to.
Okay, thank you. Any more commissioners with questions or comments?
I just want to thank you for being here tonight and all the hard work you've done for Holden Beach. Again, we're just a little spot in the road, but you've been able to shine the light on it for us.
Thank you.
It's a privilege. I mean that. Thank you all very much.
I'd like to add one thing that I didn't touch on. Thank you for the 18 years in Congress that you served as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
all very
All right.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mhm. Chief Dixon, number 9 on the agenda.
Good evening. Our report's going to be short tonight, so as it usually is with me. So in this report, you'll notice first page it's got a 6 and a 7, and then the totals beside it. So when you get down towards, starts on 17 and runs through 20, you'll notice like 1,681 calls. That was not for 1 month because we skipped the meeting last month. 6 is the month of June, 7 is the month of July, and then the total split out beside it. So just trying to combine the numbers into one report. So those numbers, 800 calls for service averaging per month is average for us this time of year. It's been busy during the summer. Nothing of significance to bring back to the board and report at this point. You can see our incident reports there that we've taken through the last couple of months. And of course, the citations and ordinance violations. Again, most of that has been parking focused, as there, seems to be our reoccurring issue on these reports. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns on that, I'll be glad to try to get through them with you. If not, I'm going to make 2 public service announcements, but go ahead.
I've noticed that in your report that the parking violations have dropped a little bit from June to July, so evidently they're starting to figure out where they can park and where they can't park.
Yes.
The other thing I noticed in here that you've got investigator requested. Have we had any luck finding a detective to help with our investigations?
We have not, and that's actually going to be part of my next public service announcement, is going to be the exact opposite of that. We've not only not had an applicant or filling that position right now, we actually had an officer turn in his 2-week notice this week. So I'm down another officer now. Well, not technically yet, but in 2 weeks I will be. So he's going to get us through Labor Day. That was going to be part of my next public
But
service
you were already
announcement.
down one, right?
We were down 1 plus the detective. So technically we have, well, in 2 weeks we will have 3 vacancies out of our 11 positions. So we're 27% short
Doggone,
right
Chief.
now. So, yeah. When it rains, it pours, right? And then the only other thing I really wanted to mention to everyone, we're rounding out the summer. We've got 2 weeks left to Labor Day, but schools, I know some of them are starting back already, but basically the public schools start back next week. You're going to start seeing buses on the road. You're not used to it yet, so leave 5 minutes early for work so you don't get hung up behind a bus and get angry. Slow down, watch for kids. That's my biggest thing coming into it with school starting back. Just watch for kids and give a little extra time for the buses. That's my report this month. Again, questions, comments, or concerns?
All right, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thanks for what you do, Chief.
Thank you, Jim.
Mr. Evans,
I also have 2 reports. I hope everybody's doing all right. We do get a lot of questions about stormwater. There's nothing really that stands out in these 2 monthly reports. The active new home permits is 37 for June. The other active permits are 375, and that's the ones that we have to file at the work every day. You'll see that permits in review were 6 for that month, and zoning issues were only 8. Total inspections made were 438. This is the time of the year when they start going down, and then they pick back up after Labor Day. For July, we have active new home permits, total of 33. We're working 393. For those permits that were issued for over 30,000, there's 34, and permits issued over 100,000, there's 6. Total permits is 452. Permits in review is 8, so they hold steady. CAMA issued was 4, and zoning issued was 17. Permits serviced for inspections are 133, and the total inspections made for this month is 350. So there's really just a steady stream of work, and there's nothing that stands out in this report, nothing special at all.
any questions of Mr. Evans?
Have you, just one, Tim, have you seen any slowdown at all in people applying for permits to build now with the current
Well,
economy?
it's hard to judge this time of year. Typically, they're rentals, and so we're not going to see a whole lot of remodels, we're not going to see a whole lot of repairs because they're being rented. And so what happens is anything that carries over into this part of the year is usually coming over from stuff that wasn't finished or they didn't complete. Where we see a big surge is usually around the holidays for finishing new construction and large remodel jobs. And so that's just holding steady. That's just going along. We will be able to have a better idea of how we're doing in the housing market between September and December. That is where you will find the window for starts to try to be ready for the next season. And we can get a good gauge in there. That's the best time. That's a good question for November, really, because I can give you more accurate reading because no one's really going to do anything as long as they're renting properties. We're going to try to make it look good.
Thanks, Tim. Good job. Thank you for your work.
Any more questions of Mr. Evans? Thank you very much. You and your staff are doing good. Mr. McCraney,
Got some copies.
Money man.
A little easier to read.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
looking back at June, the expense line for the general fund looks super inflated, and that's because of all the end-of-year transfers to the canal dredging and beach and inlet renourishment fund. Everything for July is tracking pretty true.
So we're not seeing it, I don't see June.
It's at the end. It's set up on the fiscal
Fiscal
year
year.
now. July
Oh,
through
okay.
June.
So, okay. I thought that was next year.
Yeah, and speaking with the audit committee at the last audit committee meeting, there was some interest in kind of revamping this report, and I've spoke with some of the members about that, and I just haven't had time to do that yet, going through audit, but hopefully next month, have something a little different to present. Any questions?
Yes, just following up what you said, I was going to request if we could see running totals for the year, you know, just curves instead of bar graphs.
Okay.
And I'd like to know what everybody else thinks, but that gives me a better picture of revenues versus expenditures to see how we're doing keeping up with our bills and how it looks compared to last year. It's a little harder for me to pull that out of these. I don't know how anybody else feels about it. But I'd like to suggest that we do that. I don't know what the audit committee suggested.
Maybe like you do like a line on this graph of a running average?
Well, we could put it, yeah, we could put it on, or running total, not average.
Yeah.
It could go on here, it could be a separate page. I don't know if other people find the bar graph useful. I find it, I'm more interested to see how we're progressing through the year. I don't know how everybody else feels, so I want to just flip that out there and see if we can do that. And perhaps if you can just run an example of that, everyone could look at it and go, yeah, we like that or not.
Yeah, I can bring something.
What do you
back
guys
next
think?
month and-
Yeah, I mean, I think the audit committee is working with you on these, and if I remember correctly, it's, you know, where do we stand relative to the year, where do we stand relative month to month, and then how does this compare to last year at this time? So we kind of can baseline against last year, and then we kind of see, you know, I mean, BPAR revenue should be huge in this time of year, so, you know,
Yeah.
by the end of the season, where do we stand with BPAR as compared to last year? Where are we relative to the whole year for this year? So, yeah, I understand that the audit committee members are meeting with you and working through some ideas.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McRaney.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hewitt, number 12.
Yes, sir. Wanted to bring everybody up to speed on where we are with the Greensboro Street Sewer Lift Station number 2, the upfit status on that. As you may recall, the first rounds of bids, we did not have a sufficient number of bids to proceed with the project. The second round is due day after tomorrow, the 22nd of August. We are hopeful and optimistic that it will be a favorable bid climate so that we will not have to entertain any type of financing scenario. But what we have tried to do is position ourselves so that we might be able to do that should the circumstances require it. We don't want to close ourselves out administratively, and then the bids come in extremely high, and we haven't taken the preliminary administrative steps that would allow us to pivot and make that type of decision on a timely basis. So we have taken the preliminary actions that are required by notice to the Joint Legislative Oversight Committee of our desire to possibly obtain financing. We have made bank contacts with the associated required administrative actions being made, and also had informal discussions with the local government commission so that they're aware of our circumstances and challenges should we need to go down that avenue. If required and desired, the board would need to take action on the 26th of August to formally engage with the application process in order to meet a LGC calendar, October calendar. But in the case where the bid award schedule, the best case, which means a good bid, at the September board meeting, the board could move forward with making a contract award with the construction time frame beginning in October, November, depending on when the bids could be certified, or the bid could be certified with a 270-day construction time frame, truncating in the June, July time frame of 2025. We have new updated FEMA and North Carolina Department of Public Safety guidance. Currently, the guidance from the feds and the state up until last week was that in the event of a federal declaration for a disaster, 75% of all qualifying damages would be reimbursed by FEMA to the town through the North Carolina Department of Public Safety, with the remaining 25% maybe being reimbursed by North Carolina. Further clarification of that guidance on the 25 on the whole potential reimbursements is that there will be no disaster funding made for non-operational facilities, and any damages reimbursed, we'd have to prove it with maintenance records for those operational facilities that would claim damage. As of press time, which was the 14th, FEMA has now stated that they are out of money and will need a supplemental appropriation of $9 billion. I am not sure that that's as dire a forecast, because I'm informed that that's a recurring process, but it's something that we certainly need to stay attenuated to, and we will endeavor to do so.
David, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
What did it used to be? If you're saying it's 75,
It's always been 75-25 for the state. North Carolina has historically anteed up for the 25, but we've seen some watering down of that certainty for the other 25% from North Carolina, with this language being might be reimbursed and having to prove with maintenance records on those facilities that qualify. So, you know, that's the continuing issue with relying on FEMA as the prime savior for the beach, and part of the reason why we're looking at, the town has sought other avenues to keep its beach repairable.
yeah, including beefing up our fund.
I have a question, David. Did we have expenses from Tropical Storm Debbie that would be eligible for?
No, sir.
Okay.
Well, let me qualify that. We may have some overtime, but
Nothing worth pursuing?
nothing damages.
Okay.
For public facilities. I'm not aware of any private facilities that may qualify.
David, let me ask you real quick. These maintenance records, that's essentially what we do to keep the beach in shape.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's
To include our ongoing evaluation, annual evaluation, surveying, planning, all those types of activities.
okay, thanks.
Moving on to the pier, as tasked, the request for proposals is tasked in May. We can't do that, but what we can do is develop a request for qualifications and have the board entertain entering into a contractual agreement with an engineer, an engineering design, and financial professionals for those things that were, those elements of work that were contained in the peer development plan previously approved by the board. And the selection of those firms would be subject to the board's approval, and which has to be made solely based on the qualifications of the firm and not price, specifically prohibited from price. Price is taken into consideration at the next step when the board would enter into a negotiation for those contract service specifically.
David, just to be clear, so the request for qualifications will come back to the board in September, and then it'd get issued from there? And then, what's the timing?
My understanding was that it was to come back to the board for your review and approval before it's issued.
Okay, and your best estimate of the timing for that?
Depends on what kind of response you get to the request for qualification.
No, I'm talking about to have it to us to issue.
Oh, well, I think that I'm on a glide slope now to bring that to you in September.
Okay.
But then it would have to go out subsequently
To bid.
and as a formal solicitation.
Right, okay.
But I gather with that, we can, as a consensus, we can direct him to move forward, to have a draft of a request for qualifications for us ready for the next meeting. We've got to kind of tell him he needs to do that.
Yeah, sounds like you can do that, right?
Is that good for everybody?
That was my
Yes.
intent.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what Rick's saying is we originally asked for a request for proposal, but can we change it to a request for qualifications?
Well,
Before he can
verbally?
do the other, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's
The way it was phrased before was it seemed to envision that you could come up here and get engineers to bid on the work. You can't do that.
Right.
You got to make your qualification-based selection and then negotiate a contract with them.
Unless they're under 50 grand. Anyway, that's, Annette, may I jump in? What I would like to do by consensus, if the board agrees, is if David gets a draft together between now and September, that it be distributed to the board to start looking at. So for instance, if you're done in 2 weeks, we get a look at it, and if we got comments and stuff, we can start working it such that maybe we can.
You can't really do that, because if you have a different comment, then Paige has a different comment, and you guys are giving him different direction outside the meeting. I mean, it really has to all be done during a meeting setting as to.
Could we get it?
I'm not saying you couldn't give
Okay.
it to you sooner, that's up to him,
Let-
but you
okay.
couldn't work
Let-
on it in the background.
Let me
Okay.
put it in the agenda package and.
But could we get, if we could get it earlier and not give you any feedback, we could have more time to look at it. Is that, what I'm trying to do here is shave a couple weeks off the timeline, and sounds like Heather's bursting my bubble there. Is that out
Yeah,
of?
she is.
Sorry.
Yeah, y'all need to.
Thanks, Heather.
Y'all need to let it go in the agenda package, and, but I'll tell you this. I have had a eureka moment once I got past the, okay, we're not going to be able to compete engineers in the bidding contract format, and the information that's in that plan, it's fairly succinct as to what the desires of the board is. We're going to get pretty close with a draft that we could bring to you.
Okay. All right, thanks.
While we're talking about the pier, can I ask another question? That was one piece of it. And one other thing that I think staff was tasked with was to go out and see if the public-private partnership, the viability of that. Have you had any opportunity to investigate that?
We've talked with bond counsel and also our financial advisors, and in order to approach the local government commission, we're going to have to know whether we want to build or repair.
Okay.
And because to ask that question, we're going to get 17 questions back.
Okay, I'm okay with that. I just wanted to know where it was so that we.
But we have, we have done that.
So that, people know that it's too early to do something like that until we do the next step.
That's my understanding.
Perfect, thank you.
Are you,
Go ahead.
are you including this as the pier and the pier building, or are those separate?
The tasker that came in May was just the pier.
So excuse me, can I have the floor?
Yes, sir.
In other words, David, we can't even have somebody come and present a proposal that you could take for, and it would give us an idea of whether we wanted to go repair or replace. Would that be inappropriate?
I think it'd be inappropriate this time until you know what you want to do in terms of building or repairing, building new or repairing. We're talking about the pier, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Percy. And it did really well under this last storm.
Okay. Concerning the 325, good? 329 Ocean Boulevard walkway, that construction is complete. It's officially open, with the exception, unless the beach mats have been put down, that's what remains. Canal dredging, we are going to need to update our permits there at the end of December. That has been initiated and is underway. Regarding the town-owned spoil site at the northeast end of Scotch Bonnet, in a related and tangential effort, the staff has gone ahead and initiated contact with the Wilmington District, and we have received, and let me digress for a moment, the town-owned spoil area at the northeast of Scotch Bonnet is not a Department of the Army spoil site that the congressman was talking about. It does lie within the easement of the Corps, the 1,000-foot wide Corps easement through there. We've gone ahead and asked them to reconstitute our ability to use that site for public works, bulk storage, those kinds of things. In addition to that, because at the time that we had to sacrifice it to do the last canal dredging project because of the prohibition on access to the official Department of the Army spoil sites, that was a dog park recreational use. We have been denied that ability to do that. We have received tentative approval for bulk, so Public Works can put the ugly stuff, a big dumpster, the storage of a backhoe over there, mulch, gravel, those kinds of things for road repair. It is subject to final review by the Corps' Atlanta Real Estate Division. Oh, we also got approval so that the top of the levee, which is about half a mile around, can be used as a walking track, so we can maintain that. It's got a mighty fine growth of coastal Bermuda grass on it. Now, it will not be ADA accessible, but it can be used as an amenity there. And it's a nice view. You know, it's bordered by the little creek that comes up, runs north to south on its east side, marsh sides on the south, and then of course it's right on the ICW.
Hey, David.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, can I have the floor?
Yes, sir.
Do people have a place to park anywhere near that?
They do not.
I didn't think so. Just
They do not.
so you're going to do your walking early before you get to enjoy the view. Okay, thanks.
This is related, an item of attention so that we can gain unfettered use of that property and put spoils in it for future use. The Block Q bathroom, we have an economical, atypical stormwater solution in hand. Internal review on that is underway and should have more information at the next board meeting as far as what the final solution might be. On Avenue E, all the way at the east end, our permit is in hand. Tim Evans has been doing the heavy lifting on that, so I take license with the we. That permit is in hand for ADA compliant parking, public and emergency access, and restroom facilities down there that will enable us to get an RFP together. That has been rough drafted so that we can go out soon to do the required advertising, contracting, just as soon as we can get it done. The intent is to have construction take place through the fall and winter, and we are cognizant of although the deadline has been soft pedaled for March of '25, from the staff's perspective, that's a hard deadline. So we're going to do everything we can to meet that, as well as all of the remaining issues related to the ADA access and the Key Bridge agreement. Regarding that, the 114 Quinton access and restroom facility, everything's been done there. All the ADA requirements have been met. All the improvements are complete. We have a certificate of occupancy, and we're on the cusp of opening that thing up. I was teasing Christy the other day that probably the last thing that we need to do is make sure there's toilet paper in there. But I believe that we got to have a male-female sign put on. But we're about that far from being ready to go there. It's a good job on it.
That looks good. We'll be open from Labor Day?
We're on the cusp of opening it up.
We're on the cusp of Labor Day.
Yeah, well, we were supposed to have it done by 30 June.
It looks good,
so,
though.
yeah. Regarding the 801 Ocean Boulevard emergency and public access, we've decided that what had been initially scoped there was definitely overkill. So the refinement that has been made and the permit applied for is basically to rebuild the walkway that was there before. And we'll keep the emergency access uncompacted soil. So that CAMA permit has been applied for. Once we get it, it's really straightforward from there. We're just building a walkway again. A couple more things. Regarding 796, the status of that upset bid process. Apparently, there is continued interest in that property. I know that Christie did a showing today of it. The current bid, it stands at $520,000. The upset bids for the next evolution are due at 5 p.m. on the 26th of August.
And it needs to go up by 5% or 10% this
There's
time?
some convoluted formula.
Yeah, I know.
Heather knows the number. She puts it in her thing, so that's good.
Yeah. Yep, it's a formula. Last but not least, got confirmation of some good news, and evidently I've been here for a while because we got the note paid off on the emergency center over there. We received that back in the day, and I can remember when I first got here, we were trying to figure out how we were going to finance it. So that's all I got tonight.
Good job, David.
Anybody have any more questions of Mr. Good?
Yes, sir, I've got a couple quick ones. On the ADA bathroom and the March deadline, I know in the agreement we're allowed to request an extension. Should we start just looking into that?
I'm gonna say no, because we're gonna push as hard as we can to make it. And
Okay, so
Tim,
at least not yet.
well, and Tim is in close contact with,
Okay.
on a regular basis with, Ms. Myers, to make sure that she's apprised of where we are with all of this stuff.
So on that subject, can I just ask real quick, when is your next quarterly review with her?
We had to reset it. It's in my phone, but it's actually in September. It's the beginning of
So when you meet with her, then can you bring it into us so we can see where we stand on all the things from the
Sure, I'll give a report. But
Perfect.
The report's basically going to reflect,
Just whatever you went over with her, then we'll see where we are on all the items.
Yeah.
I think the town should be really excited about the fact that we're revamping the 801, the big cost savings solution. It was a MMC, a midnight moment of clarity. And it's one of those times where we've been thinking about it so long until we didn't have to worry about hindsight. We saw what we were building and realized that we could do much better, a lot cheaper.
Great.
And so that's where we're headed. So, and she I had the discussion with her before we ever kick-started in that direction. She knows what we're doing.
Okay,
Good
Thank
job.
you, Tim.
Thank you.
that's okay.
Are we ready to move on?
No, sir, I have one more question, if I may. David, I believe there was some discussion concerning Pump Station 2 grants about needing to execute, or we might possibly lose that grant. If I understood correctly, should we be looking at asking for an extension due to the difficulty we've had awarding a contract? Is that a possible thing?
I'll throw that one to Christie because she's a lot more familiar. When we laid it out in the work plan, we're on a pretty hard schedule.
Last year, when the bid came in and the bid was not awarded, the EPA granted us an alternate date in the work plan to move it to the right 1 year. So they've already allowed us to move it right. So we would have to, if we ask that, we may not be granted it. So we can ask, but they've already allowed us to move it 1 year.
That one's probably going to take congressional intervention if it gets to that
Okay.
point.
Well, then, let's see what the bid is. And
Yeah.
hopefully get-
2 days.
Yes, sir. Let's
Yeah.
see if
Okay.
we can't move forward. It's a necessity.
Okay, that's all I have, thank you.
All right, now we're ready to move on. Number 13. Town clerk?
If the board would like to vote by ballot, if you can make sure to sign your ballots, but if we could do the Board of Adjustment regular, Parks and Rec, and Planning and Zoning Board regular members first, I'd appreciate it. If you guys just remember to add to the Board of Adjustment regular member ballot, Richard Roberts and Rick McIntyre.
Which ballot?
Board of Adjustment regular member.
Okay.
Collect them, you guys.
Oh, did I sign it? Sorry.
Thank you.
You want just that one first?
That one, Planning and Zoning and Parks and Rec. Thank you.
Oh, so you're
And
asking for
all
all
the
the
regular
regulars?
members, and
Thank
then
you.
I'll tally those and tell you really quick, so you guys can do the alternates. Thank you. Sorry, I'm covering.
No, I just wanted to make sure I did it right.
Am I going to need to get Daniel to come up here and
I'll
run the
give you
calculator?
Calculator, yeah.
I think it was the 4 one, right?
Hey, you-
You have all the ballots?
No, not yet.
No.
And we can't move on yet, because I need them to vote again when I'm done with this file, I'm sorry. Thank you.
They're there. These are-
No. 5-minute bathroom break while she tallies this up.
I like that.
5 minutes.
Your circle ones are what we're doing.
Yeah, because I already.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another time. So the first, one of the alternates is going to be Mark Francis. And then, I need you guys to vote, one vote between Pete Pallas, Wade Coleman, and Sylvia Pate.
Yes, ma'am.
And if you guys can make sure to sign them again for me, please. Sorry, covering that too.
Oh, okay. I'm running out.
Okay, I need one more piece of paper from you guys.
Oh, my God.
Between Sylvia Pate and Pete Palace. You think I give you a whole pad, huh?
I know, it's getting into my stuff. Running out of paper.
Well, that paper, then all you know, written
Now I know how bad my wife feels walking back.
I've got a mess here.
That's right.
Okay.
So I'll just tear off another sheet of paper.
Pete Palace. And I think, unless somebody corrects me, I think we've just filled all the boards except for the BOA alternate, which we don't have another person for. And I think you're done with me.
Are you through, Madam Clerk?
I think so, sir, yes.
Thanks to all of you that have offered yourselves for service. Number 14. Mr. Hewitt?
Yes, sir. This is consideration of the formal adoption of the McGill Stormwater Master Plan, and I'm not going to belabor reading the resolution. Suffice it to say that is the prime directive that adopts it and issues directions to the staff. But before the board, laying it before the board for consideration, a couple of things that I'd like to point out and try to pull together to focus the effort of decision-making here. And for the crowd here tonight and online, I think it's important to note that this is a reconnaissance-level strategic plan that attempts to establish a framework which will enable projects to be fully developed, funded, and constructed. It's not the end-all final solution, and in all likelihood will need to be refined, amended, and appended in order to optimize the tangible results town-wide. It all depends on funding, of course, and will be subject to, should the board adopt it, to the annual budgeting process, which of course is controlled by the board. This is a classic, what I call a PPBS exercise, a planning, programming, and budgeting exercise, geared toward being the prima facie evidence needed to acquire federal and state money to fund it. Without it, you're on your own. And I've got some more information forthcoming for mosquito control. But its adoption, and I want to make sure everybody understands this, its adoption is not going to fix your mosquito problems next week. This will be a long-term endeavor that will enable the succinct identification projects to be taken down in bite-sized chunks. Shifting gears slightly, stormwater has been a rather site-specific and nebulous construct across North Carolina, and I'm assuming nationally too. But recently, efforts have been formulated and focused more. The town joined the American Flood Coalition last year that is organized, and that is a formal outreach organization looking to deal with stormwater and coastal flooding issues. As briefed tonight, there's $13 million in the Corps' budget that's administered by the Wilmington District that we've discovered and have our eyes on as the initial pool of money to draw from. The public partnership agreement is in development by the Wilmington District and should be coming our way soon for the board's consideration. The ante has been upped to $50 million by Congress. There has been a $60 million supplemental nationwide funding appropriation made, and as I mentioned earlier, Senator Budd's office has communicated with us and on our needs, which, depending on what we do here, we're positioned to be able to get first in line. I will say that based on conversations that I've been privy to during the most recent storm and mentioned by Congressman McIntyre, others have interest in this. Brunswick County specifically, during Tropical Storm Debbie, there's lots of interest in the Caw Swamp and Waccamaw River basins. During the last storm, Debbie, and where I fall back to is that in the face of overwhelming numbers, because we got a small population base here, and odds, in order to succeed, you have to rely on speed, agility, and pre-positioning in this case, and that's where we are. Lastly, I'd like to say that remind the board that although we were talking about the federal calendar, you also need to remember that the North Carolina General Assembly convenes 15 January. That's 140 days from now. So the approval of this plan will allow us to move forward on all of those fronts with strategic level scoped projects that we can refine as you move forward on an annual basis. And I am highly excited and optimistic about the ability to engage in that process. If we don't have this plan approved, I don't have the ability to do that. So my recommendation, of course, is for the board to adopt the plan by resolution.
All right. Motion, anybody?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a statement also. It's just like our representatives that just told us a few minutes ago, it's hard to ask for money if you don't have a plan for the money. And that's pretty much where we are right now. So at that point, saying that, I'd like to approve Resolution 24-07 to adopt the McGill Stormwater Plan.
Second, anybody?
Second.
Discussion, anybody?
Yes, sir. I'd just like to make a few comments on this plan. I think it's important to move forward so we can get our hat in the ring for funding. I know there's some design concerns with some of my colleagues, but I think that can be worked out in parallel if we start moving quickly. My understanding of this stormwater plan, I want to be clear about this, is, and someone help me out if I'm wrong, this is, the design criteria is for a 2-year and 10-year rain event of 24 hours duration. It's not, these stormwater designs are not aimed at solving the problems from a tropical storm or hurricane. So it's a great step, first step, but it's not the end of it all. Nor does this plan, as we've heard, address everything, all the problems on the island. So there, as some have mentioned, there's more work that we need to undertake. When we get these hurricanes and these week-long rains and stuff, we're still going to have ponding and stuff. So I think it's good to address these problems. I believe, David, these were cited as staff as the top 5 or 6. I think that was it. So I just want everybody to know when we get these things in and we get a hurricane through coming, we're still going to have ponding. That's all I got.
Any more comments? Yes.
I'll go ahead. I agree, we need to support this resolution. We need to do something about the stormwater. We need to take advantage of money that's available for us to do that, and we need a plan to move forward. But I just want to make sure we've got flexibility and we can, because I think there's a couple problem areas that are not in these 6 areas, and I think there's a couple in this area that probably aren't worthy. So I want to make sure that we have the flexibility to improve this plan before we commit to it. And the reason I say that, it just seems like we get caught in these situations where we apply for grant, we get the grant, it's like, well, now we want to do this. No, you can't do that because you didn't apply for that, you know. So I just want to, and maybe we just real quickly tweak this plan in the next couple of months to get the items in there that we need to get in there, so that we don't face that problem. That's my only concern, is just, I think we're missing, for example, east of Dunescape, which was a terrible spot. It's not really in Area 1 where it needs to be, and we're missing the canals, and the canal flooding is a big problem. You know, I don't think Davis Street needs to be in here. I think we can just budget money and do it. Carolina doesn't seem to be, you know, compared to these other ones, we just want to focus on the high priorities and the right projects to do, and that may change. I just want to make sure we've got the flexibility to tweak the projects before we've committed.
And you're going to have to do that through the annual budgeting process. You're going to have to decide which one of those projects that you want to do.
Okay.
And there's 4 major projects, and all of those are along Ocean Boulevard. And the primary selection measure on that was that everybody's got to go up and down Ocean Boulevard, and the side streets were, you know, it was strictly a numbers basis on making those. But your point taken, you guys are going to have the flexibility to control and prioritize those projects.
Okay, because, I mean, it just seems to me that things changed after the bike lanes and paving, that I was surprised. The problems popped up where I don't know if we had problems, other problems weren't as bad, so.
Well, I mean, you're talking about problems popped up during this rain event.
Yeah.
Well, you got to remember, the island's 9 miles long, and that's one occasion. You know, it may rain on the east end, and it doesn't rain on the west end at all. So, you know, those decisions.
I think we all got rain from,
I mean,
from Debbie.
Like today, it rained on the other side of the island, I mean, off the causeway there, and didn't rain, you know, over
Rained on the
here.
west end today.
So,
Okay, I mean, I support it, I just want to make sure we've got the ability to improve it, make changes to it where we need to do that.
So I just want to say that I support it also, and I'm all for going out and getting the money. And just reiterating what Tom said, you know, Davis didn't have, basically was dry, and so was Carolina during this rain event when I went out on Sunday and Saturday. So when you go for the grants, then it will be just project by project? It won't be for the whole master plan?
I'd like to clear the bases on it whenever we'll go forward to clear the bases on everything. And then depending on what level of success that achieves, because, you know, you're going to have to do site-specific designs in order to have a deliverable project. So my intent is to carry it forward for the full Monty as much as we can get.
Okay, thank you.
What about adding to it? I mean, I really do think we've got some areas that should be on this list that are not.
In order to add to it, you're going to have to re-engage with McGill and to go through basically the same process that you did with
We can't
to
just do
develop the
amendments?
master plan. Well, and that's what you will. You will have to amend the plan at that point in time.
Okay.
Anyone else want the floor? Doc, you got anything you want to add? Rick? Anybody
Sir,
else?
it's time to vote.
Ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It's unanimous, Madam Clerk. Congratulations.
Mr. Mayor, can I just throw something out there for consideration? I know Commissioners Myers and Thomas have technical concerns about what's in that plan and may want to hash out, other sites. Is there interest in setting up a meeting with the engineer and the staff, with those two commissioners to talk about it? We're not changing the vote or anything, just if they have concerns, maybe they need to have a discussion with them. What do you guys think?
Yes.
My one concern is, I've been driving the island, and Dunescape East was unpassable, so that is a problem. I don't think it's addressed by the plan, and I also think the canals are a problem, and they're not addressed by the plan, and I'd like to see those added so that we can address those issues and potentially get funding to do so. So those are the kind of things I'd like to see changed, is actually adding areas that I think are a problem, I think are flooding, and I do not see how this plan addresses them.
Okay, point of order here. Once the vote is cast.
I'm not changing my vote, yeah.
Okay.
No, we're not changing.
No,
If I may finish, I think I've got the floor. Whenever a vote is cast, you're supposed to move to the next item on the agenda.
I apologize, that's my fault.
But I gave you permission to talk, so that's all right. Maybe I shouldn't have. But I keep being reminded by some people in the audience that I'm not being firm enough up here. People speak without being recognized and so forth, and I'm trying to hit a happy medium so that we don't have a civil war up here, as we've had often. So I'm saying that once something is voted on, the rules say that you move to the next item on the agenda. So let's move to the next item on the agenda. Okay. Okay. Number 15, Mr. Myers and Ms. Thomas.
Yes, at our last meeting, which was in June, Chief Dixon and Chief Todd discussed the problems they were having getting onto the beach strand and then traveling down the strand to where they needed to go based on beach equipment getting in the way. We do have an ordinance, 9406, that was passed in September of 2010 to address obstructions in equipment. And now I remember this ordinance very well. It was the cabana ordinance. It was before Central Reach. We didn't have that much dry sand, and people were setting up cabanas and staking a claim for the whole week. So the first clause of that had to do with not allowing people to leave their equipment on the beach overnight. The second clause prohibited equipment from being near the turtle nests, and it established a 10-foot travel lane up by the dune. But there is nothing in that ordinance that deals with blocking emergency vehicle access ways. So I'm proposing that we add a new clause, C, that prohibits beach equipment from blocking the emergency access ways so that the emergency vehicles can get to the beach. I'm not changing anything else in the ordinance, just recommending that we add a clause to protect the access ways.
Can I say something?
Yes, ma'am.
So looking back at the minutes, it was saying that Chief Dixon and Chief Todd said they're having trouble getting out there because people are setting up their beach equipment around accesses, and they're having issues getting onto the beach. And then Christie was saying that, well, there's not an ordinance to back it up to ask the beach patrol to tell people not to do it. So that's what we're proposing to add, is to add clause C that says, all beach equipment shall be at least 10 feet from any emergency vehicle access way. Since there already is an ordinance that says they should be 10 feet from the dune vegetation, and that would be their access to go down the beach.
So I'm not sure what the process is on
Think-
changing the ordinance. Yeah, do we?
Well, I think we make a motion to, make a motion to change the ordinance to add C.
I would have to, yeah, you would make a motion to have staff bring back an ordinance for you to approve. Sorry, I don't know, I'm choking up here.
Can I have the floor, sir?
Yes, sir.
I understand the chief and the fire chief both with their request at that meeting. Since that time, I've talked to them, and they saw this and said it's really, and I'll quote, not gonna do any good. I think what we need to do is ask our chief of police and our fire protective people, as well as our staff, to come back to us with recommendations as to how we need to change this ordinance. Also, when you do change an ordinance like this, of course, we've got, especially this time of year, we have so many visitors that it needs to be visible to them as to what is expected. So therefore, there needs to be signage. So there needs to be a little bit more thought put into this and more input from the chief, from the fire chief, and our staff before we make a change in the ordinance. I'm not against it at all. I think it's a good idea. It's something that we need to do, but we need to do it per their recommendation instead of a knee-jerk reaction and doing something that, in their opinion, will do no good. We're headed in the right direction. I feel like this, our heart's in the right place, y'all's heart's everybody's heart's in the right place. But it needs to be fully vetted from the people that are gonna, number one, enforce it, and who's gonna write an ordinance that we can all agree on. And that's it. And I think it's a great idea. Don't get me wrong. We've got to do it. But let's let the people that are gonna enforce it and need it, let them tell us what we need to do, please.
Ms. Thomas, was it you or you? One of you.
It can be me.
I already said my piece.
Okay. Tom and I talked about this, and on the surface, it seems to make sense, because if you had the ordinance, you could at least put some signage up, not to put things in the walkway, in the emergency access. So, and it's a problem, and we would like to do something about it. But the bottom line to me, and this is to you, Chief, if it doesn't fix the problem that you have, then I don't think we need to put something on the books that doesn't achieve the goal. So at the last meeting, you and Chief Todd did say, let us come back to you with something. What I would like to get is a date when you guys could bring us something, please.
Somebody stole our mic. So as far as the date to bring you back something, don't have that date yet. I don't know. He and I have talked several times, and of course, over the summer, we get together, we talk about it, and we move on and get back. So we have not found that perfect solution yet. And kind of like what I've been hearing so far, this isn't perfect. It's not terrible. It doesn't hurt anything. It's just a 10-foot, when you're talking about our average pickup truck's about 20 foot long. It's 10 foot. It's nothing, honestly. So it doesn't really solve anything. It doesn't hurt anything. It just doesn't solve anything. So that was my comment back to it. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying it's terrible. It's just, it's not, it hasn't been considered for any, like he was saying, signs, talking to Christie with beach rangers or anything like that. So I think there's a lot more that needs to go into it, just my 2 cents worth. So as far as bringing you back something, I would love to, but we haven't found that perfect solution yet. We're actually kind of waiting for that, what do you call it, the midnight moment of clarity, where Chief Todd and I just come up with, like, finally we have a solution that will work. But
Do we need to put Tim on it?
We may need to put Tim on it. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So just to be clear for myself, you don't see that this is going to do anything to help the problems you have?
I don't personally. I
Okay.
don't. It's not going to hurt anything. It's not terrible. It's just I don't think it's going to help anything at all. Just
An ordinance needs to provide a function. It needs to do something for us. So that's where I was getting with it.
Yes.
Any other commissioner want to speak?
Yes, I would like to.
I'll go last.
Okay. I do want to mention the Section A. There was a meeting, I guess, at the beginning of the summer. I think it was either we didn't have a quorum or it was taken off the agenda. The time frame for things left on the beach was brought up, and there was several public comments made about it. I'm sorry, I don't remember which meeting it was, but it was taken off the agenda. But there was a mention then about the time frame, like, for instance, the hour of 6 p.m. This time of year, there's still people out on the beach well past 6. and we're talking 7 or 8 PM, and I think some of the tents that are rented, there's going to be people that rent those tents, residents or visitors that rent the tents, that are going to want them to stay out longer than that. So from an enforcement standpoint, that's going to be hard if you're going to start having the ranger enforce or mention ordinances. The other thing, 7 AM, there are some people, because of heat and traffic, trying to beat the traffic that's coming out, that they're going to be, I know that there's some of these companies that rent tents that are out around 6 or 6:30 AM. So I know that was brought up to be addressed at a previous meeting, but it was removed from the agenda, so.
Anyone else?
No, this was intended to solve your problem. I was thinking there was a simple solution, but I guess there's no simple solution. If it doesn't solve your problem, we don't need to do it.
Mr. Hewitt, I think you were supposed to get the floor.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
I'll be frank. I think that we're using the wrong tool to try to accomplish something. The idea is to improve access. The fact is we don't have enough accesses, regardless of how you're going to get up and down the beach. It's a half a mile from the Golden Holden mailbox on the back side of the east end across from Brown's Landing up to the public access at Amazing Grace. From Amazing Grace to the next public emergency access at Captain Jack's or the 100 block, it's 1.25 miles. From Captain Jack's to the pier, it's 1.7 miles. From the pier to Starfish, it's a half a mile. From Starfish down to 800, it's 1 mile and change. From 800 to the end of 1300 is 3 miles. From 1300 around to the corresponding bookend at Monk Island to the east end to the west end, it's another half a mile. So from the 800 block to the far west end, it's 3.5 miles. You need two more accesses in that 3.5 mile stretch, regardless of what's in the intervening area. And that's where I'd recommend that we place our efforts at improving emergency access on. Don't worry about traversing the beach strand. Get more access from the highway out to the beach strand so you can get there quicker.
Mr. Smith?
Well, that was exactly where I was going, David. I mean, on the beach, you can run and not run over anybody, maybe 10 miles an hour, to where on the boulevard, I think you can run 10 miles over legally, which if I'm hurt, I want you to go a little faster. But you can get more, you can get further, faster on the boulevard. So as David says, I think, again, we need to maybe ask staff to see if we can find some other routes to get onto the beach, access to the beach further west. After 801, after the 801 access, there's not another one, is there? And back when I could drive on the beach, that was years ago, that was a good 20-minute ride up there, because you couldn't go that fast, especially at high tide. So I think David hit on the perfect solution there. But Tom, I appreciate the effort you and Tracy put in trying to fix something that, we all know needs to be fixed. So if we'll just allow the staff to come up with some recommendations, I think that would be our best bet. Thank you.
Ms. Thomas has the floor.
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to ask Jeremy, have you had an opportunity to see what the other beaches do?
I've looked at some of their ordinances, but no, I have not had a chance to really dive into how they do it, how they enforce it, sign, any of that, the fine details, I have not.
Back to you, Mr. Hewitt.
I just say, but before it sounds like I'm raising my hand and to get tasked for seeking acquiring real estate there, the board should evaluate that type of, and I'm assuming you're going to come to us with it, in terms of where that would rack up in your priorities and goals, because at some point in time, we're getting a fire hose treatment, and we can't get started on one thing before getting tasked for another. And that's all I would ask, is some consideration for that if you're so inclined to do it.
Anyone down here on the floor? Any more comments or a motion to be made? If not, we're going to move on. All right, we're gonna move on and turn the page. We're on number 16, I believe. Public comments on anything you want to talk about. Raise your hand, be recognized. We've got a speaker coming here right now. Name and address, please, sir.
Good evening. I'm Rick McInturf, 122 Frigate. If you've not had the opportunity to attend the majority of the summer concert series this summer, you may not realize we have had an excellent summer of concerts. The crowds have been outstanding, the bands have been great, and the general public has been extremely receptive and tolerant of a less than perfect concert venue. They dance in the back street behind the band. They can't get close to the band in the front. It is not too early at this point to begin putting on your agenda and move purposefully to the creation of a permanent concert venue for this community for next summer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Yes, sir.
David Bond, 1171 Ocean Boulevard West. I'm here to ask the council to please consider talking to Charlie Miller and asking him through a possible appropriation in the state to get us money to build a new pier. There's money in the budget in Raleigh, we need to ask for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else want to speak about anything on the agenda or not on the agenda? Good or bad, happy or unhappy, whatever. Last call. Anybody want to speak? All right, we're going to move on. Thank you very much. Mayor's comments. Make this brief. I'm really, really concerned about the drownings up and down the North Carolina coast in recent weeks. Holden Beach has been fortunate. We have had some emergencies that have been addressed, and thank goodness no one's lost their lives. But just fair warning to everybody, and you know, those of us that have pulled dead bodies out of the ocean before and seen bad things happen, we know what it's like. And once you see those kind of things, you don't forget them. And playing in the ocean and being on and around the ocean, I know I look back at my history and I wonder why the good Lord's let me still be here. I don't know.
Amen.
But it's a serious, serious concern. And please watch your neighbors that are in the water and be mindful of, especially little kids that just suddenly go underwater and nobody knows where they went. Moving along to storms. We've had our share of thunderstorms. I know my personal experience, light got blown out in my elevator at my house, my office, power surge blew one of my air conditioning systems up, all in one storm in one night. And so we've got those kinds of storms going on, and we also have the near misses that we've recently experienced with tropical storms, and I know that we're going to have some more activity coming, and I beg people to go ahead and be making your plans and preparations and pay attention to all the announcements. I'm really happy with all the communications across the news world and the weather predictions and so forth. The communications are unbelievably good and accurate now, though they're not perfect. The beach in front of us here at Holden Beach, I don't think has ever been better to be prepared. But the homeowners, especially oceanfront and canal owners, and even the waterway owners, be very mindful of the rising water as we're experiencing this week with the full moon tides and so forth. We do live on the coast, and it's just part of it. Hurricane season, I've always said that if you can get to October the 15th and there's not one immediately on the horizon, we've made it. But it's a long time between now and October the 15th.
Amen.
So pay attention, and I think the town is prepared with our plans of actions, and I know that in the last few days I've been talking with staff about tsunami plans. some people might snicker when you say tsunami at Holden Beach, but there is a serious concern about that happening, and be aware that the town of Holden Beach will be involved with creating and moving along with a plan that conforms with the North Carolina plan and the county plan and so forth. So you'll hear more about that in the near future. I'm not predicting that we've got a tsunami on the way, so don't go panicking on that. It's just a matter of preparation. I don't see a whole lot of change in what we do for hurricanes. It's just going to be a lot quicker happenings once we find out possibly if there is a threat of a tsunami. But I will say to you that it's been a long time in looking back at the many summers of comments and good things and bad things overall. I don't think I ever remember the comments being so positive about the appearance of Holden Beach, the homes, the streets, the right-of-ways, the garden at the entrance to our island down here. And just overall, I'd just like to say thank you to the property owners and all those that are responsible for having a part of that. It's nice to hear people coming from Wrightsville Beach, Carolina Beach, and surrounding communities and giving comments about how wonderful Holden Beach looks. So it does go being recognized by not only those of us that live here, but those that are coming from elsewhere. So be proud of this island, and let's keep working together to continue our hard work and making things better in all things. So with that, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
I just want to thank everybody for attending, either physically in this room or virtually. And please don't hesitate to reach out if you've got comments or suggestions. I want to hear from you. Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
I've got to agree with Alan. This has really been a great summer, but it couldn't have been a great summer without the help of our fine police staff, keeping things under control. Especially our maintenance team that has kept our sewer and water moving in the right directions. Tim and his staff are keeping up with the demand of all the inspections that need to be taken care of. Christie and the summer concerts have just been absolutely outstanding. You've got a beach person look after the beach and the bathrooms and the maintenance of the mats and the beach monitors. I'm on the ocean front, and I talk to a lot of people, and they say they are the most respectful people and helpful people they've ever seen. So that is a good image for Holden Beach, is when we got people riding up and down the beach that, you know, people have such positive comments about. So that's really great stuff. The rest of the staff keeps everything moving along smoothly, and it is appreciated. I'm going to get not just a minute on golf carts. Again, you know, I looked up this morning, and an LSV is more than 20 miles an hour, but less than 25. There are golf carts going up the road that I've followed that are running near 40. So, you know, it's a very dangerous situation, whether they have seat belts on or not. 40 miles an hour in a golf cart, a sudden turn, and you got some really injured people. The bike path, I think they're starting to get the hint you're not supposed to use those. I think your guys have stopped enough and talked to enough people, and even people that are my neighbors that have rentals, that I've told people when they pull the golf cart in, I said, remember, seat belts, and stay. If you're going to stop on the bike path, pull over all the way off the road, stop, let traffic by, and go by. And I think the signs that we put up earlier in the summer that kind of gave the visitors a little heads up, I think really helped, because I said 2 meetings ago, well, 2 months ago at our last meeting, that I'd seen a change in the use of them. But I think it's slipping back in the other direction. So those signs really helped a bunch. You did mention school buses, and that's near and dear to my heart, because that's been my profession all my life. School has started. You got to be able to see those big yellow buses, and when the stop sign comes out, for gosh sake, stop. You've got kids, especially this time of year, that aren't really used to getting back in the groove yet, that could make some darts across the street, so be careful. I'd like to thank all the people that were on our Parks and Recreation Board that put in countless hours to do the stuff they've done in the past. Some of them weren't put back on, and I congratulate the ones that were put back in their place. But the ones that were on there did us a great job for quite some time. Labor Day is coming, and the weekend after next, and just the island's gonna be packed. It always is. I don't know what keeps it from sinking and making the canals even lower. But it's gonna be packed. So please be patient with our visitors. Be patient with the golf carts. We all want everyone to have a safe and enjoyable Labor Day weekend. Thank you.
Ms. Thomas?
So I pulled out our list of objectives, and I just wanted to commend everyone. We're making great progress on the things that we prioritized. The number one thing was completing the ADA compliance, and David went through. We're making great progress on that, thanks to Tim and the staff. You know, we talked about Avenue A, Quinton, the Pier ADA is complete, Avenue E. That was the number one thing. The number three thing was the sewer station upgrade, and we're moving forward on that. You know, we've got all the stuff in, we've got all the grants in hand, and we're waiting to, you know, this week hopefully we'll get a bid that we can move forward with and start actually building something. Number five was the stormwater study implementation plan. We talked about that tonight. We have adopted the plan, so we're moving forward on that. Number six was the ADA bathrooms on Block Q. We're moving forward on that. We got the stormwater plan, so hopefully we're making, number 10 was the 796 OBW. The first bid came in at 345, and we all said, you know, now we're up to 520. This week, next time hopefully will be 550. So there's a few things that we hopefully will be able to bring in the following months coming up that we haven't really talked about, like the fire station, that was number 7, and the audio video improvements. But I just want to reiterate that we're making great progress. The staff is doing a great job, and we are making progress on our top 10 priorities, and I wanted to thank everyone for that.
Thank you, ma'am. Doctor?
I want to thank Mike and Roger for the report that Warden Smith gave us. It shows how hard their staff is working, our staff is working, to know that we've got a plan in place, that we're ahead of a lot of people, and all the compliments they gave us on how we are standing in our beach. That's a good compliment on everybody's hard work. I want to thank Christy and the Public Works and the Police Department, everybody involved. I've gotten numerous community compliments on our concerts. People are really enjoying them. The community, as far as Ash, I've heard compliments. When people come in to visit, a lot of people, it's hard to get into Ocean Isle because of their traffic situation, and they're enjoying our concert series a lot more. So I really appreciate y'all's hard work. One of my public service announcements, rip currents. Being out on the beach, it's frightful to see the number of children. People get so distracted by putting up tents and doing social media, and it's just we're so advanced in our report. I mean, I have Amazon Alexa announces to me, my phone announces to me, my next door neighbor's social app, Facebook, all these announcements about the rip currents, and it's frightful to see that people just aren't getting it. They come and they visit. It's the week after a tropical storm, and there's children out boogie boarding right next to the rip current. And you talk to people and tell them, and they look like you've annoyed them by saying, hey, I live here, I know there's a rip current. So just please, everyone visiting, everyone going to the beach, please be aware of these rip currents. And if you don't know that there's a warning, then just assume there is a rip current out there. The other thing, there's a lot of complaints on social media about the trash on the beach. You could put 15 trash cans out there, they're going to be full. So we're getting a lot of pushback about how we don't have enough trash cans, and we don't have this, and we're not spending parking money on trash pickup. Like I said, you put 15 trash cans out there. I keep trash bags in my beach bag. July the 4th at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I picked up, at our access alone, around the trash can, I picked up 6 bags of trash. And I put them in a bag and put them next to the thing. But I usually haul my trash off. So I employ everyone. It's not that difficult. If you're in a rental house, I live off the main road. And I take a trash bag and I take all my trash with me. If the trash can's not full, I'll put it in there. But if you're throwing loose cans and bags, If a windstorm comes up before we pick up the next day, they're all going to be in the dunes. So just, it's not our responsibility to pick up your trash. Just take a bag, a Food Lion bag, a trash bag with you in your beach bag and put your trash in it and just take it with you, please. It would help us out a great deal. It would make the beaches cleaner and it would protect our dunes. And with that, just have a safe Labor Day.
Mr. Barfus?
Well, my fellow commissioners didn't leave a whole lot to address, and I second everything you said. I do want to give a big thanks to staff and particularly Public Works for keeping everything working and going. I know it's tough on Public Works in particular while Debbie was visiting. That's a job well done. I have one concern I do want to bring up, and I know there's an ordinance against it, but I'm seeing people with charcoal fires under the house. Houses burn in threes around here. I've spoken to people when they've done that next to me, and they're usually nice enough about it. They go, we didn't know. So I'd like to suggest that people start thinking about what might be a reasonable approach. We could do refrigerator magnets like we did for riptides. We could use our roadside sign to advertise. Perhaps the rental agencies could help because they can't rent a house that burned up. So I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention because I see it several times. And, you know, when houses go here, it's a problem. So my intention currently is to put this on the agenda for next month. And I would just ask that people think about what we might do to get the word out. I know when I came down here as a vacationer, the first thing I did not do was cruise through the town ordinances to see how I was supposed to behave. So let's think about it and see if we can come up with a reasonable way to address that so we don't burn anybody's place up. And the last thing I'd like to say is thank you for everybody that has attended or is online. It's important to participate, and it's also important to communicate. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe it's time to move to number 19 on the agenda. And
Can I make a motion that we go into closed session?
yes, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk, you want to read?
Yes, sir. Closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A6, personnel.
All right. With that, I would say to all of you that attended tonight, thank you so much. We will come back into regular session sometime, hopefully before daylight session. Is there a motion to adjourn?
You have to get back in.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.